Next up is our very first Songs from the Studio, where we captured our drum sound with a single Mic Parts V251 tube mic in an overhead position. Let's take a look at that mic setup. All right, so our mic setup is the single mic. It's basically pointed kind of right at the beater where the beater hits the kick. So it's splitting everything, and it's not very high. I mean, we are, from the snare, it's literally about 2 stick heights up. It's not very high at all. The big thing about this and the hard part is I am playing really quiet. We're letting the compressor and the EQ and everything do all the work to kind of create that sound. But our sound is going to be baked in. The mix is all in my hands, which is tricky because literally it's like everything is down, playing really soft to get that tone. But it's cool. This mic is nice. It picks up the cymbals nice. We're getting a nice kind of thick sound. This can be a great position for a microphone, especially if you get it centered in the right spot and low enough. You can actually get enough kick drum and get a real even sound between the toms and the cymbals. But just like the mic in front of the kit, it all comes down to the drummer balancing everything. But we also split the signal and took a clean signal so we can listen to both. So let's start off by listening to just the drums that we tracked. All right, so here's the unprocessed second signal that we also recorded. That mic does a really nice job at capturing the low end of the kick drum and a good snap on the snare. So as long as I didn't mess it up by playing anything else too hard, that's a great sound to start with. So this should be pretty easy to work with. The first thing I want to do is pull out an EQ and let's see what we can do. I have chosen the Trident 9066. I love this plug-in. I've got a few settings here. Let's just hear what this sounds like. First off. Now let's hear these one at a time. So here is off again, low, that low boost, which you can see I'm doing quite a bit of. I'm doing 8 dB at 88 hertz, which is a lot. It's making our kick drum nice and big. I don't mind it blowing up a little in this song. I thought it was kind of cool, but it's also adding some serious weight to the snare drum. Listen again. That's a fat sound already. Now we probably need to balance that out with maybe a little punch on the top. This is a smaller boost, about 2.3 dB, just shy of 5K. And that's already a pretty thick drum sound. Let's hear that in context. Now we are getting a little bit of volume from the hefty boost on the bottom end, really, but I do like how it's filled out the drum sound a little bit and it kind of matches the rest of the instruments just a little bit more. We're gonna do 2 more things to see if we can mold this sound a little bit more. The first being compression, because that's kind of the obvious place to start. I'm putting this directly on the channel, but you could also do this stuff in parallel, which we'll try something else in parallel in just a second. But for this track, I chose a different compressor, which is the Golden Age Comp 54, which I absolutely love on drums. I'm gonna go ahead and leave our EQ on for our sound now, but let's take a listen to just those drums with the compressor on. Off. I like the creamy kind of mid-range that this compressor has, especially on drums. And I feel like it just makes our sound a little bit more defined. So let's hear that in context. And I'm going to start with compressor off, EQ on, couple bars, I'll kick the compressor on. Let me match that level just a little bit more. All right, here we go. Actually, both sounds are kind of cool. It's neat without the compressor. It's a little bit nicer. The compressor has a little bit of spank on there, but either one of those sounds would really work, you know. This whole point of all this is to find ways to mold a single mic to fit whatever music you're making. So if any of these ideas spark some creativity for you, great. But there is no rule that says we have one mic, we gotta put a compressor on it, or you have to EQ it. We're just trying to make these sounds more interesting and fit the music. For the sake of what we're doing now, I'm gonna leave the compressor on. I'm gonna take this a little later in the verse because the chorus also has some ride cymbal, but it's a very different ride and we're in a very different position with the microphone, so it's gonna react completely differently to the ride cymbal. Let's take a listen to that. One thing about the overhead mic placement is I find it to be a little bit more even with the cymbals and a little bit smoother with the ride cymbal specifically. And I think you hear that here. Even with the compressor on, I'm not doing any EQ on the top to try to mitigate that whatsoever. And the ride cymbal isn't coming out, but it is a different cymbal. I think this one was a Paiste 602 Modern Essential, I believe. And the My 67X was a Paiste 2002. Entirely different types of rides. But in this case, it sits back in nicely. But it really is all about getting that mic placement right because you only have one microphone to pick up everything. And if you get it right, it's easier to mold after the fact. Add some low, pull out some high end for the snare, a little bit of compression, something in parallel perhaps. Let's have a little fun now. Parallel compression is probably what you thought I was going to say. Haha, I'm not going to do parallel compression. We're going to do parallel saturation instead. So I've sent this same signal over here to one of my Sound Sculptor TS500s. Let me open that up and let's just listen to that real quick. I'm going to go back to our verse. Here's without it. With it. I decided to push it kind of hard and try to get it to blow up just a little bit. Not like full crunch or anything, but just I wanted some hair on it. And we're gonna blend that in. I'll start with it off and I'll just blend that into our drum sound. Off. That's pretty thick, kind of gooey sounding. I like it. What's it sound like on the chorus when we start having our cymbals? Start with it off again. All right, we're getting a lot of gain, so let's see what happens with the track now. I'm gonna start with it down again and I'll just blend it in. That's actually pretty cool. A lot of the times I would probably do this with a guitar pedal, you know, the OD Glove or something like that, and I'd be blending that in. But I've been playing around with the Sound Sculptor specifically as a parallel because I like the fact that it's a little bit on the darker side and you can push it quite hard and it doesn't get crunchy. It just kind of bloats a little bit and has a little bit of hair on it, so you can add some serious thickness to your tone. I could probably even turn this down a few dB. And it just rounds things off really nicely. You could do this multiple ways. You could put the saturation on the actual track and kind of round it off and do your compression in parallel. You can do what we just did here. You can do none of this stuff. Your music is really going to dictate what you need to do. And then, you know, your personal preferences and maybe a little bit of whimsy will lead you to a new sound. These are just a few ideas of what you can do with the single mic and a few ways that you can augment that single mic sound. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you dig these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. Use the thanks. That would help support the channel so we can keep making these videos. And we'll see you guys really soon. Happy recording.